There we go. Hi, it's Matt again, and now I'm going to lead you through the Yin book in two presentations. I'm going to be focusing on the threats to validity, and I broke them into two parts that I think makes the most sense. These are all very important for when you do your project proposal, that you keep these threats to your project in mind. So these are the four tests. These are on page 45. I'm going to go through these two at a time. This first video is going to focus on the middle two, internal validity and external validity. I'll go through kind of what they are and ways to solve them, but of course you can see the textbook references about where in the textbook you can find these, but this is just going to be a quick summation of them. So external validity is defined as defining the domain to which a study's findings can be generalized. So that means what you find, where else can it be applied? Can it be only applied in the city that you did it in only in San Diego, or can it be used in other experiences? Does it only make sense in the specific watershed that you worked in, or are there other areas that this is applicable to? So this is external validity. So basically when you do this, you have to augment your study design with how and why questions to identify the most appropriate theories to be using, and again, how applicable they are. So I was just talking about how important the case selection procedure is, because what your case is determines basically what other case it's applicable to. You can have a critical case, and this information starts on page 51 and 52. A critical case is one that you can get the most information out of, that could confirm, challenge, or extend existing theory. There could be a revelatory case, which has been previously inaccessible, where you're revealing new information. Such would be the case of new archives released, or if you wanted to do something in the Soviet Union, all of a sudden you want to study Moscow city planning. The revelatory case would have been occurring in 1991. You could also look at an extreme case, which would deviate from theoretical norms or everyday occurrences that would reveal insights about normal processes. So, for example, if you wanted to study how cities operate and you chose New York City, which is quite extreme given its population, there could be some things you could still learn about that. Sorry for the spelling error right there. You can also do a common case. That's just a typical daily occurrence, hanging out on the sidewalk, seeing what you can do. As well, a longitudinal case, which there would be over time is what you're looking at there. So you have to be focused on a theory that would predict change over time. The first three cases listed there can be done in a single case study. However, the other one, a common case or a longitudinal case, to get something out of that, you really need to do that repeated times to see what's going on. So internal validity, on the other hand, seeks to establish a causal relationship whereby certain conditions are believed to lead to other conditions as distinguished from spurious relationships. So there's a lot going in there, but we're going to break it down. So if I want to try to conclude that X causes Y, but I miss out that Z causes Y, then it's not valid. This is the typical thing of, oh, there seems to be more crimes when people eat more ice cream from the ice cream truck. What's basically happening there, if I make that conclusion of the ice cream truck is somehow causing crime, that's not valid. But what I'm missing out is that the weather's nicer, there's more people outside, and that's the actual cause. So the goal for internal validity is to show that you have correct inferences going on, and you've considered rival explanations in your theory or in your case. So one way, on page 143, this discusses pattern matching. And that's basically you've come up with a predicted pattern from the literature, and you compare what you see to what's predicted. One way to do this would be non-equivalent dependent variables. Dependent variables are things that you observe are the outcomes. So if you wanted to predict the effect of U.S. military base closure, this is the example in the book, that it would lead to economic downturn. How would you measure economic downturn? So there's various things you can use. You can use housing sales, you can use civilian employment, unemployment levels, population turnover, the retail stores fail. So all these are different ways to measure different dependent variables that would all go along with the same predictive theory. Similarly, or basically, you can use rival independent variables as a pattern, which would be the presence of certain predicted independent variables precludes the existence of rival variables predicted by an alternative theory. So if your theory of change involves new groups moving into the neighborhood, when you see those new groups moving into the neighborhood, that's a predicted independent variable. Whereas if the neighborhood stayed the same, that would be a rival explanation that you would hopefully try to debunk. And the threat to validity here is to buttress against the counter argument. So you want to identify either some dependent variables or independent variables that will not change should alternative theories be correct. From there, you want to try to do explanation building, which is get at the hows and whys of something happening. So this is basically process tracing of theoretically significant propositions. So again, these are things that are based in theory, where if you can get the process right, then it kind of gives credence that you might not be exactly precise with your data. So this is an iterative process. So as you get initial findings, you go back to your theory, you revise. Is something going, what's not working the way you thought it would? After that, you revise your theory again, look for more evidence, and it's an iterative process. It goes on and on and on. So the final explanation might not have at all been what you thought it was, but you've revised with new perspectives, and now this explanation makes the most sense according to rival explanations. More complex would be time series analysis, and there's a single dependent or independent variable that changes over time. So it's crime statistics, and you would look for interruptions or changes in that. So if crime statistics go up, you would try to see, okay, what else is going up as time goes on? Or if crime statistics is going down, what else is changing over time? Or the key for interruption, did something change in the criminal penal code? Was there a new police chief? All these type of things would help your analysis. You can have a mixed pattern that goes up and then goes down. And the key to this, though, is that it's not just a chronology. You're not just telling what's happening over time, but you have a hypothesized cause and effect. And if what you predict as your effect from certain causes does happen, then your theory is right and alternatives did not happen. So that's why you need to have these causal postulates. You need to have a cause and effect story, not just telling me what happened. Otherwise, then you're just telling me a chronicle and it's not a research project or a case study. The most complex form is a logical model. And this is over time. It's like combining time series with pattern matching. So it's repeated links of cause effect, cause effect, cause effect, with dependent variables becoming the independent variables the next stage, and going on and on and on. And these are very, very complex, where even not only what causes what, but why what causes what matters in a whole theory of change. So on page 158 through 161, you see multiple logical models there. This is the most complex way to formulate your internal validity. But again, if you can see these charts do show that they're really onto something, and that would prove the heightened internal validity. So this just sums up the first two forms of validity. We talked about external validity, internal validity, and how to strengthen them. We strengthen internal validity with our argument and making sure that they're logically coherent. And we strengthen external validity through our case study selection.